In Gemara, it's called Tarasai Umnasai, which means his occupation is Torah study. Yes, the person wants your occupation. He's a contractor, he's a tailor, this one is a businessman. His occupation is Torah. What about Parnasa? Hashem will find a way to provide. Hashem will provide. Reminds me of a story with one of the young women who became religious, became Bas Tshuva, now found a chassan. She introduced her to her parents, and her father says to them, I told you the story once, father says to the future husband, future son-in-law, he says, so what, how do you expect to, what are you going to be doing in the future? God will provide, really. And like, what is your plan? Like, you have any kind of skill? You have any kind of profession? God will provide. He goes on and on. Finally, the father says, wow, I'm really beginning to like this guy. He thinks I'm God. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said, God will provide. And we know the story that he was in a cave for 13 years. All he did from morning to night was study Torah. He didn't do anything. But even when he went out, he also was totally involved in Torah. Rabbi Shmuel said, no, a person has to follow the ways of the world. So the Gemara says many people tried to follow the path of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, they did not succeed. Those that followed the path of Rabbi Shmuel did succeed, which means this path, which is the path of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, is not for everybody. That's for certain individuals, selected individuals. Thank you. And not for the average person. To give an example, there's a story of the Baal Shem Tov that he once went to a wealthy person who was a Baal Tzedakah, a philanthropist, and he knocked on the window. The shutters were there, he knocked on the shutters, and then he went back to his house. The person opened the window and sees it was the Baal Shem Tov. You can understand, he knocked and he left, he quickly put on his coat, and he ran after him, and he finally reached him when he got to his house. And he said, Rebbe, why did you knock on my window? So he says, I need money for this and this family, for this and this purpose. And he told him, he didn't give him the money, and everything was fine. So the students asked the Baal Shem Tov, like, why did he do it in such a strange way? If he wanted to do things in the Derech HaTeva, that's why he went to the wealthy person. So you can't just knock on the window, you have to walk inside and talk to him and tell him what you want. If you wanted to do something miraculous, you didn't have to go to his house. You go to his own house, sit by the desk and go like this, and the money will come to him. So what was this act of going to the house, knocking on the window, and then walking away? But Shem's answer was, you have to make a vessel in Derech HaTeva, something begashkas. Most people have to do a full vessel. For me, it's enough just to do something. But that's, again, the Baal Shem Tov, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. We have even a stronger example. Maybe you remember this from learning last year the Parsha. Some of you maybe learned it in this Chumash class with Mr. Lazarov, that Yosef HaTzadik was in jail, and he helped, he was able to interpret the dreams of the two ministers that were there. And the one that he promised him that he's going to go out and he was reinstated into his position, he said, when you get out there, speak to the king on my behalf that I should be freed also. And what happened as a result of that? He ended up being 2 more years in jail. Why? Because he was not trusting on Hashem. He asked the minister to speak on his behalf. So the question is asked, what do you mean? What did he do wrong? He's supposed to do something in Derech HaTeva. If there's a king, and there's someone that the king is now close to because he's a minister, and you did this minister a favor, and you asked the minister to do you a favor, that's the most natural thing to do in Derech HaTeva. And the answer is because Yosef Atzadik was an exception, and he was on a level that he didn't even need a Kelim Derech HaTeva. So that's the same thing like the Gemara says. Many people tried, like Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, it didn't work for them. So for the average person, in all ordinary, normal circumstances, is that you have to make a Kelim Derech HaTeva. And then he says in parentheses, even Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, the reason why he says otherwise is because he says if you won't do that, then people won't get a chance to really have Torah knowledge. The Torah knowledge will be limited because they have to spend so much time on other things. But what about someone who already has acquired vast knowledge of Torah? Even according to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, he would be required to do things in the worldly way. That's what he says. The Gam Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, even Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, who disagrees with him, only kadei lagia the mitzvahs yudiyas atei levad. There's a mitzvah for every man to have vast knowledge of Torah, and therefore he said to him, "If I'm going to do things your way, Torah matahela, what's going to happen with the Torah? Who's going to have that knowledge of Torah? If everybody's going to be busy with parnasa." But somebody who already attained knowledge of Torah, even according to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, he no longer has a reason why he shouldn't be doing gashmizik things for parnasa. Gam shechay v'olo, even though the person has an obligation. V'gisa yom v'laylo, Meshukos HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yeshua. There is a mitzvah. In fact, this is the source. I think I mentioned the other day that for a man, not only is it a mitzvah to learn Torah, no, that was in Pirkei Avos. Not only is it a mitzvah to learn Torah, but the mitzvah is to learn Torah by day and by night. Which means if a person can only spend a half hour a day on Torah, part of it should be by day, part of it should be by night. And the Gemara says if a person can only spend 1 minute for Torah, because that's the circumstance in his life, he should recite one pasuk in the morning and one pasuk at night. What's the source? This pasuk, V'gisabai Yom V'layla, and you should contemplate on Torah day and night. So even though there's a mitzvah to learn Torah every free moment, the person is still obligated to occupy himself and involve himself in business for parnasa. What page 155? The im I efshalel lahasik parnasasa bereva elam kein yasik harba. And if here it is. Here, if he can't achieve what he needs in his parnasa, he has to work many hours. Otherwise, he won't earn enough money to provide for his family. It's enough for him to learn Perek Echad Shachris, one passage of Torah in the morning, and one passage of Torah at night. Rabbi himself says that. And not only is it in Gemara, but it's actually a halacha. The Rambam, in his book of halacha, gives that halachic ruling, and the Shulchan Aruch also gives that halachic ruling. And the same thing is the quote for Rabbi Yeshua in the Gemara, in the Masechta Nida. The ha b'lo ha lo sagi. So clearly, you cannot expect to have parnasa just by having amunah in Hashem. You have to also do and get involved in the gashmizik business. What's the reason? Tamhu, and the reason, the rationale for this is api mashin is borla ma'ila, based on what we learned before, which is shashefa hanimshechas b'olam hazeh, the influence, the flow of godly energy that comes to this world, tzricha leired mimadrega lemadrega, has to be transformed, because that light is ruchnius. It's something which is not physical. It's something which exists in the spiritual realm, and that's not something which we can connect to down here. We want that energy should be transformed into food, clothing, and health, and all the gashmizik things. So it has to be transformed. What does transformed mean? We explained it's a tzimtzum. It has to be enclosed, it has to be invested in a thick garment. What does it mean by a thick garment? It's like saying when you have a light shining, it's a very bright light. The brighter the light, And if it's so bright that it could be blinding, you need a strong curtain to block it. So therefore, because this light is so spiritual and so bright, and we want it to be transformed into a gashmias, so like the big bright light, we want it to be a smaller light. There has to be a thick curtain blocking that light. So here there's a thick curtain blocking that. And that way, the good of this physical world, he'll be able to have it. We explained before, that's what the judgment is every day. It's not a judgment whether he should get chesed because he already has it in the bank. It was given to him on Rosh Hashanah. The only judgment is, shall it be transformed today from Ruchnis to Gashmi, because that's a new process. See, Bezu, because of this reason, he understands Gam came the man Chenitzah Lasik Masamati. This is the reason why a person has to do parnasa. This thick garment that blocks the light, what is it? It's not a cloth, it's not a curtain, it's teva, nature. Nature is the thick garment that blocks the light. As we see, that when things happen, they happen because of the laws of nature, that actually makes people think that the reason why it's happening is purely because of nature. They don't see that it's from Hashem. So nature blocks the light from Hashem. Ki hamislabeshes misalemes mislateres. The light of Hashem is hidden and concealed in nature. It appears as if the world is just following its own independent pattern, which is called the order of nature, derech hateva. Everything comes from Hashem. There's a pasuk where it mentions 6 different words, and the Gemara says these 6 words correspond to the 6 volumes of Mishnayos. We know that the whole Orah Torah originally was written up as Mishnah, and then later came the Gemara. So the Mishnah is 6 volumes, and these 6 volumes, they include every halacha that's part of Torah is included in these 6 volumes, and they all have a name. One of them is called Zroyim, which means everything that's agricultural, all the laws pertaining to field, the food, and things like that. One of them is Taharas, laws of purity and impurity. One of them is Kutchin, laws of sacrifices. And the Gemara shows how each one of the 6 words corresponds to those volumes. When it comes to the word Amunah, V'haya Amunah Sitecha, Amunah, the Gemara says, oh, that is the volume of agricultural. Because a Yid puts a seed in the ground and trusts in Hashem that something will grow. Think of that for a second. You put a seed in the ground and you have Amunah that it's going to grow. Who doesn't have things grow when you put a seed in the ground? Everybody in the world, whether you do believe, you don't believe, a Yid, a non-Jew, everyone puts seeds in the ground, and fields all over the world are producing produce. But a Yid, even something so natural like fruits and vegetables growing out of the ground, even something so natural, a Yid knows Hashem is the one that's making it grow. And this process, this procedure, putting a seed in the ground, and you have to first plow the field, and you have to first do this, and you have to do that, and then it grows. All this is only a conduit. It's only a keli through which Hashem gives his bracha, but it's all from Hashem. So that's, but without my amunah, outwardly, it looks like this is the reason why it's growing. What do you mean, why is it growing?
The reason why it removed a thick garment, is because it's coming from the high level of godliness.
Right, because the chesed is not a physical chesed, it's a spiritual chesed. This spiritual chesed is not, if it is applied to me, it won't give me food and clothing and parnasa and all that, because it's spiritual. So it has to be transformed. How's it transformed? Through tzimtzum. So in the spiritual worlds, there are things that do the tzimtzum. Down here, what's the tzimtzum? What is that garment? What's the thick garment that it passes through this garment? It gets filtered, and that's the filter that makes it physical. That's teva. Why? Because Teva hides the godly light.
That's true for everything, not for us.
Everything, right? Person goes to a doctor, and the doctor heals him. Well, of course, it makes perfect sense. He gave me this medicine, and this medicine does such and such. So of course, he was healed. But the answer, it's true, but really Hashem is the one that heals, and this is just a garment. So if Hashem heals, what do we have to go to the doctor for? The same reason, because Hashem wants to give you the bracha of healing, but it has to come through a garment. Otherwise, it'll be healing in some sort of spiritual sense, not physical. The last line, Hakel Bom Hashem is everything comes from Hashem Himself. All the things which we have in the Derech HaTeva, the natural order, but it all comes from Hashem. Add until page 157. Unless, when is it revealed? When you see something miraculous, something which it's not consistent with the laws of nature, and according to the laws of nature, this was not supposed to be the result, then you see clearly that it's not the natural reason, it's a higher spiritual reason. But if it goes according to nature, then like in this week's parsha, it says that Yitzchak was very successful, so he planted X amount of seeds, and it should have been X amount of produce, and how much did he have? Tons and tons more than what normally would come out. That's not Derech HaTeva. Now he's going to explain again, how is this relevant practically when you're talking about business? L'moshel, when Hashem wants to give a person parnasa to satisfy his needs, he has a family of 5, he has a family of 8, family of 10. The Eibishter satisfies each person according to what they need. Generally speaking, Hashem doesn't give the money just through a miracle. Like Hashem did in the desert, there was a miracle. Food came down from Shemayim. When food comes down from Shemayim, you clearly see that this is from Hashem. Why? Not because it's coming from the Shemayim, because there's no natural reason. How does this happen? So imagine if a person would get bread and he would get meat from Shemayim, like the people who ate the man. This is totally unnatural. There's no way of explaining it scientifically. Even though today you can get food, I think, from Shemayim, you just dial a number and they deliver you food. It's from Oretz, but it's similar to that idea, which years ago was unheard of. They also say that soon they'll be delivering food with drones. So the Mamash will be coming from Shemayim. You just go outside, they'll drop a package, and you have your food. Hashem sends his bracha that he should succeed in this business. To profit in business, that's natural. Everyone profits in business, so it's a natural thing. But because it's natural, therefore it's possible that a person would say, this is a pasuk in Chumash, where it says that a person shouldn't get to the place. Yeah, we want to take a look at page 74. It's a Chumash Devarim, where it talks about Hashem gave you the month, and how people sort of drifted away. And then pasuk Yud Zayin, where it's underlined, it says, this is in Devarim, Parshas Ekev, it's chapter 8, pasuk 15, where it says, you will say in your heart, it's my strength and the power of my hand that had me acquire all this wealth. If a person does business and he succeeds, he attributes the credit to himself. Or another pasuk that he brings, where it says, "Chachmasi amdali," it's my wisdom that stood by me. It's my wisdom that gave me the ability to be so successful. I'm a smart person, and I know where to invest, how to invest, when to invest, and that's the reason why I succeeded and I have wealth. So that means that this is something. The fact that it gives room to think that is not Hashem, this is me. That means it's a good garment. Interesting. What makes it a good garment? The fact that when this happens, you could deny Hashem. You could think that it's really totally you. And he said, I know and I understand business. Malik is what to buy. They must say limker and when to sell, because that's the way it works in business. That you have an item and you have to know when to buy it and when to sell it, when to invest. I once saw a letter from the Rebbe where this woman wrote the Rebbe that she had a bracha from the Friedrich Rebbe. I don't remember what it was about, but it was about children, it was about a shidduch for a child. But she said the Friedrich Rebbe gave her this bracha and it still didn't happen, and she's very upset. So the Rebbe writes back that when a businessman does business, he not only has the money to do the business, he also has the wisdom to know when to invest. Which means I have the money, I can buy stock or I can buy real estate, but he waits for the right time when he's going to buy it, because that's the time that it's going to bear a profit. So he says, when the Rebbe gives you a bracha, he, number one, gives you the bracha. Number two, he knows the right time when to give you the bracha. So same thing here. A businessman has to know the right time when to invest, when to buy, when to sell. But the truth is, there's a passage where it says, bread doesn't come to the wise people. Don't think that because you're wise, that's why you have the bread. You have the bread because Hashem gave it to you. It's only to those who Hashem gives him the bracha. And he ordains with his supervision who will be poor and who will be wealthy. Mashpil u'mereimim. He's the one that lifts people. He's the one that brings them down. That's all from Hashem. And it's not because of my wisdom. But Hashem gives his influence through the garment, which is nature. What is it that defines nature as a good garment? The very fact that you don't see Hashem in it, that makes it the right garment. That makes it capable of doing the tzimtzum, to conceal the light of Hashem. The contrary, nature leaves room to think, my strength and the power of my hand is what made me acquire this wealth. The teva ha'olam. The intent and the whole idea, the pattern of the things that are concealed, is a really very deep concept. So this is the attribute of gevura. What's gevura? Lahalim or lahaster chayis alakuts. To conceal the godly light and to hide the godly light, that we shouldn't see it. Even though Hashem wants us to see godly light, isn't that the whole purpose of creation? He created a Gashmitic world that we should bring godly light into this world. But part of the process is he created a world that's concealed, and our avodah is to reveal the godliness. So therefore, when a person, for example, does business, it's a concealed world. But the fact that before he does business, he davens to Hashem, or after he succeeds in business, he realizes this is Hashem's bracha, and he thanks Hashem for it. That's how he reveals godliness in this world. This is a deeper meaning of what our sages say. That initially Hashem thought to create the world with the attribute of judgment. to give you the whole story. The whole story is like this. You look in the Chumash, it starts off with the first words are Bereshis, Bara, Elokim. Not only that, but every pasuk after that, when Hashem started creating light, creating animals, creating everything, it says, Vayemer Elokim. And Hashem said, let there be light, let there be this, let there be that. In fact, it says altogether 32 times the name Elokim. All the way at the end, when there's sort of a summary of the whole creation, it says this is the last day of creation, that Hashem Elokim created the world. There's two names, Hashem and Elokim. Hashem is Yud Kei Vav Kei. So the Gemara says, I think Rashi brings in the Chumash as well, that initially Hashem intended to create the world with the name Elokim, judgment. But then he saw if he does that, the world is not going to be able to stand up to it. It'll be too strict. So therefore, the Eibishter also did judgment together with compassion, kindness. And now the world could stand. There's a medrash that uses this analogy, and that we learned already about the mushroom. When the medrash tells the story or a mushroom, it's really very deep. But this is the mushroom, the medrash, that a king had glasses to drink from, a glass, and he said, if I put in hot liquid, the glass will break. If I put in cold liquid, then the liquid, the juice or the wine or whatever it is, will stick to the glass and won't be clean. So what did he do? He mixed hot and cold together, and now everything is fine. It's not hot, not that hot that it'll break, and it's not that cold that it'll stick. So you have it. What does it mean? If Hashem would create the world with an attribute of judgment only, and everybody would be judged severely, then nobody would survive because nobody's perfect. If Hashem would create the world with chesed, with kindness, with the cold water, then it wouldn't be clean. People would do averos because there's no consequences and there's no punishment for doing bad. So people would just do whatever they want. What did Hashem do? He created the world that there's a balance and there's a harmony of kindness and severity, chesed and gvur. So there's a few questions here. The first question is, why would Hashem, even if you would say that Hashem thought to do one and then not to do the other, why would Hashem initially think to do with gevura? I would think the opposite. Hashem is at the epitome of kindness. Hashem is all chesed. I would have thought it should have said the opposite. Hashem initially wanted to create the world with chesed. But when he saw that there's no other way because people are going to do averos, he needed also to partner chesed with gevura. Why does it say initially wanted to do it with judgment? And not only that, there's actually a pasuk that says that Hashem is the pasuk Olam Chesed Yibana. The world was created with Chesed. So the way Chassidus explains it, what he's going to explain now is, no, first thing is Gevura, meaning like this. The whole purpose of creation, Hashem wanted to create a world that's not like where the angels are, but a world of concealment. Which attribute do you use for a world of concealment? Gevura. So this world, godliness has to be concealed here. Okay, but if it's a very concealed world, then how are we going to recognize Hashem? How are we going to see Hashem? How are we going to feel Hashem? We won't be able to bring Hashem's presence in a world that's totally concealed. So therefore Hashem also revealed his godliness in the world. That's chesed and gevura. Not just severity, judgment. Gevura means Hashem's presence being hidden. Chesed means Hashem's presence being revealed. So therefore, generally speaking, the world operates according to nature. From time to time, Hashem performs miracles. Hashem gave us the Torah. Hashem gave us the mitzvahs, which means he incorporated in the creation other things that they reveal godliness. And there are other things that conceal godliness. And together we have this balanced world.
Can you just explain again what exactly happened in Cheshvan? Like, I was under the impression that Hashem like created the world with him and then like did that. But you're saying he started like
No, the language that used is first he thought this, and then he thought that. Hashem doesn't change his mind. and Hashem didn't make a mistake with his calculations. So it's like everything else, it's a metaphoric way of speaking. It means, in essence, Hashem would have wanted to create the world with Gevurah, but because then the world couldn't survive, so therefore he needed to also create it with Chesed. What does it mean? So before we explained it, Averis and things like that, but now he's explaining it deeper. Hashem wanted to create the world with Gevurah means because this is a world of concealment, so the main attribute is the attribute of Gevurah that comes first. And then, because if it would be total concealment, then we wouldn't be able to, you know what total concealment means? Right now, there are a lot of things in the world that scientists will say, this proves that there is no God, that the world was created some other way. Like Darwin's theory and other things that people say, Hashem created the world, somebody once said this, that wherever you turn and wherever you look, there's proof that God doesn't exist. That would have been pretty tough. But if Hashem wanted a world of concealment, concealment means if it would be just pure concealment, it would be true, it would be derivative tachtonim, but we wouldn't be able to reveal godliness in such a world because everything is concealed. So Hashem had to allow windows where some light shines in, and that's the partnership of Chesed and Gevurah. So therefore, Hashem wants, that's what he's saying here, that initially Hashem wanted to create the world. Sadin means concealment, levush, Vestatrus, the garment and the concealment. Rosh Hashem saw the world could not continue, which means it will be only concealment. We wouldn't be able to reveal godliness. So he also brought in revealed godliness. What is that? Is galus, the last line on the bottom, is galus of the course, revealing godliness by the wonders and the miracles that are in the Torah. So that's first of all, you look at the Torah, you see the stories of Mitzrayim and the 10 plagues and the Kriyas Yamsuf and the man, all these miracles. This is where we see, and the miracle that we read in the stories of Tanakh with Yeshua, all this reveals godliness. Another thing is, Yechidim Usridim, Asher Hashem Kori Aleim Kedashkam B'Gemara, V'achareim Tzadikei Elyon. And also through the tzaddikim, there are righteous people in every generation that perform miracles. The stories of Baal Shem Tov, and the stories of the Arizal, and the stories of the Rabbeim, and the stories that are found in Gemara, and the stories that are found in Zohar. These were tzaddikim that through the miracles that they did, and through the Torah that they taught, they revealed godliness. Is that Shama Arizal? No, we'll stop over here 1 second. So that means that this is where we have the balance. There has to be a derech hateva, and Hashem wants derech hateva. So it's not just Hashem showed that there should be a garment. There's a reason for that, because that's the only way that the chesed of ruchnius could become chesed gashmi. That ruchnius, the chesed, is the source for food. And the other one is the source for clothing. And the other one is the source for health. But as long as it's a source, it can help me. I need it to be actually transformed into food, clothing, and health. And that needs a garment, something that blocks and doesn't let me see openly that it's godly. And that's the garment that goes through. That's Derech HaTeva. So Derech HaTeva has a very prominent function in this world, that things must go through Derech HaTeva. There's a big discussion, which is always talked about when it comes to days like Yutas Kislev. One of the differences between the Rebbes of Chabad and the Rebbes of other Hasidic circles was that they performed miracles in a super, super open way. And in Chabad, the Rebbes of Chabad, even when they performed the miracle, it was often camouflaged that as if it was something natural, even though it's clearly a miracle, but still it was somewhat hidden. In other words, every effort was made that things should go through some sort of a natural order. Sometimes a Rebbe performed a miracle, but he would send you to a doctor. There was a certain doctor here in Crown Heights. His name was Dr. Zelikson. He was the doctor of Crown Heights in those days. There was no ODA, and there was no team of hundreds of doctors like today. One single doctor. He was the doctor of Crown Heights. And he was a doctor, he was a chassid, he was Shemai, he was a daven for many hours. But if often the Rebbe, something very serious came up, and they would send him to Dr. Zelikson, he knew, okay, this is good news, it's going to be a miracle here. But the Rebbe doesn't just say a miracle. Go to the doctor will already, through him, through the doctor, he'll do something, and that'll bring the miracle. But hardly ever did the Rebbe tell people, you don't need a doctor, just go on with your life. The Rebbe would just say, go to the doctor, and he'll take care. So it's normally people think, oh, because the Rebbe was very humble, he didn't want people to know that he's performing a miracle. Maybe that's also part of it. But according to this, no, it's part of it was in order for the miracle to happen, but Gashmias had to be somewhat connected to a order which is a natural order. Okay, this is another piece, a little piece. We'll leave this for tomorrow. Starts with the Arizal about the Tzavas B'nai Yisrael. Okay, we'll now do the Sikha on Mashiach. Take a break and go straight.
Break.
Break. Okay. Take a 2-minute break. 3-minute break.